He says in verse 12, "For as many as have sinned without law will also perish without law. And as many as have sinned in the law will be judged by the law." Those who do not have the law of God, here he's speaking of non-believers who don't have the law of God, they don't have the scriptures, they don't have the Bible. He says, those who do not have the law of God, who do not have the word, they will be judged according to the light that God has given them. What's the light that God has given to every person? Well, we saw that in chapter 1. God reveals himself through creation. Everybody knows from creation that there is a God. They can see in creation his power, his nature, his character, his Godhead, and every person has God's moral law written on their heart and in their conscience. And so for those that don't have the law of God, they don't have the Bible, they've never heard of Jesus Christ, they will be judged according to the revelation of God they do have, the light they have been given. And every person violates that light. Every person violates that light. Every person is guilty. I mean, how many of you here, show of hands, how many of you here have always obeyed your conscience? When your conscience told you not to do something, you always obeyed it. Go ahead, raise your hands. Anybody? Those watching online, no one raised their hands. Because we don't always obey our conscience. We're all guilty. So again, sometimes people will bring, well, what about the guy who lives in some remote place? They never hear of Jesus Christ. They've never heard the gospel. They don't have a Bible. They don't know the 10 Commandments. What happens to that person? Well, they've got creation. God is revealing himself through his creation. God has written his law on their heart. Have they obeyed? And the answer is no. They're guilty. Those who do have the law, those who do have the law of God, those who do have the word of God, well, they have more light, and so they will be judged by a higher standard. They will be judged according to the law that they have been given. You think about all the light that we have today. You're sitting with a Bible in your lap, a full and complete revelation from God, Old Testament and New Testament. You own your own copy. You probably have several copies in your house in several different translations so that it's easy for you to understand. You can come here to this church or to another church where you can hear the Word of God taught week in, week out. We've got Christian radio stations that are broadcasting Bible teaching 24 hours a day. You've got TV stations. You've got the internet. You've got apps and websites that we just have all of this light available to us. And the more light you have, the more responsibility you have. The more knowledge comes more responsibility. We have more light available to us today than any previous generation in church history, and there's a responsibility that comes with that. We'll be judged according to the light God has given us. So verse 13, it's not the hearers of the law that are just in the sight of God, but the doers of the law will be justified. The word justified means declared righteous. God's going to declare those who are doers of the law righteous. For when Gentiles who do not have the law by nature do the things in the law, these, although not having the law, are a law to themselves, who show the work of the law written in their hearts, their conscience also bearing witness, and between themselves their thoughts accusing or else excusing them. God has written his moral law on every heart. And so even the person who doesn't have the Bible, doesn't have the 10 Commandments, they have this moral law from God written on their heart. And so when they obey that moral law, they are showing that they have this law written on their heart. They have a knowledge of right and wrong. That's why they're without excuse. So finally, verse 16, "In the day when God will judge the secrets of men by Jesus Christ according to my gospel." For the good person, the moral person that is addressed in this section, whose sins are not outward and not obvious, whose sins are inward in the heart and hidden, well, God will judge the secrets of men. God will judge the secrets of men. Back in Ecclesiastes chapter 12, verse 14, it says, "For God will bring every work into judgment, including every secret thing." Every secret thing. So those secret sins that we talked about, pride, covetousness, jealousy. Jesus talked about lust and anger. If you're angry with your brother, you're guilty of murder. If you have lust in your heart, you're guilty of adultery. All of those secret sins and all of those hidden sins will be brought into the light at the judgment day, and people will be judged for the secret things. The moral person, the good person, will not escape the judgment of God. Just because their sins are not outward, they're inward, they're not going to escape the judgment of God. The secret things of men, the hidden things, will also be judged. And listen, there will be a lot of good people in hell. There will be a lot of good people in hell. There's a big, big difference between being good and being righteous in God's sight. A person can be a good person, but not righteous in God's sight. We can be good, moral, outwardly, but that doesn't mean that we are righteous in God's sight. We are declared righteous through faith in Jesus Christ. Faith in Jesus Christ is the only way anyone will be pronounced righteous in God's sight. No one will get into heaven on the basis of their deeds or their works or how good they are or being a good person. It's only through faith in Jesus Christ. This is why Jesus Christ came. This is why he died on the cross and rose again, to rescue us, to make us righteous in God's sight. This is what Paul is driving home and laying out for us in this section. We're all unrighteous. There's none righteous, no, not one. There's no one who is good enough. Not a single person. This is why we need the gospel. This is why we need the good news from God. Back in chapter 1, verse 17. For in the gospel, the righteousness of God is revealed, and it's from faith to faith. The way to be declared right with God is through faith in the gospel, the death and resurrection of Jesus Christ.